The hotel was buzzing with unusual excitement that morning. People hurried around, arranging chairs, polishing glasses, and straightening tablecloths. The scent of fresh flowers mixed with the faint aroma of coffee, creating an atmosphere that felt almost like a grand celebration. Lena, a young waitress, moved quietly among the guests, balancing trays with delicate pastries and sparkling water. She was small, unnoticed by most, but she carried herself with careful precision, knowing every corner of the hotel like the back of her hand. That day was different from any other. The hotel had been chosen to host a private cultural event, and the guest of honor was none other than a wealthy and highly respected billionaire sheikh. Known for his love of Arabic culture and language, he was someone who rarely attended public events, and his presence alone made the staff nervous. Lena could feel the tension in the air. Even the seasoned managers were walking with careful steps, their voices hushed as they coordinated every detail. The sheikh arrived in a grand black limousine, accompanied by a small group of assistants. His presence commanded attention without any effort. He had a calm, confident demeanor and sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. As he entered the hotel lobby, whispers spread among the staff and guests. Everyone felt the weight of his reputation, and there was a mixture of excitement and anxiety that made the room almost electric. After settling in, the sheikh gathered 40 of the finest Arabic language experts from across the country. These were scholars and professors, all highly accomplished, who had spent years studying the intricacies of the language. They were confident, some even boastful, each convinced they could impress the billionaire with their knowledge. The event was supposed to be a test, a challenge that would reveal who truly understood the deeper nuances of the Arabic language. The sheikh's challenge was simple in explanation but difficult in execution. He presented an ancient Arabic phrase, written in beautiful calligraphy on a golden parchment. It was a phrase so rare and complex that it was almost legendary among scholars. The task was to provide the exact translation and explain its hidden meaning, including its historical and cultural significance. One by one, the experts approached the stage speaking in a formal, rehearsed manner. Their interpretations were long, filled with technical terms and complicated explanations. Some were close, some were completely off, and a few even contradicted themselves mid-sentence. The sheikh listened silently, his expression unreadable, occasionally shaking his head or frowning. After each attempt, he asked clarifying questions that left the expert stumbling, unsure how to respond. Lena watched from the side, carrying a tray of drinks. She had no formal training, no degrees, and certainly no expectation that she would ever be part of such an event. Yet, as she listened, something inside her stirred. The phrase was familiar. It was not something she had learned in school or at work, but something her grandfather used to say when teaching her poetry as a child. He had a way of explaining the meaning behind words that made them feel alive, and suddenly memories of his lessons came rushing back. Despite the recognition, Lena hesitated. Who would listen to a simple waitress when 40 experts were present? She felt small and insignificant in that grand hall, where every eye seemed to be on the scholars. But as the experts continued to falter, a sense of urgency grew inside her. She knew the correct meaning of the phrase, the depth and beauty of it, and it pained her to hear it misrepresented. The experts were becoming increasingly flustered. Some argued among themselves, each insisting their interpretation was correct. The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats, sensing the tension between the scholars. The sheikh, however, remained composed, his gaze sweeping across the room as if he were weighing the true worth of each person present. It became clear that the challenge was more than just about knowledge. It was about understanding, intuition, and the ability to connect with the language on a deeper level. Lena's heart pounded. She carried the tray in her hands, but it felt heavy with the weight of the moment. She moved closer to the edge of the stage, careful not to draw attention to herself yet unable to stop listening. Every word from the experts rang hollow compared to the clarity she remembered from her grandfather. She could see the frustration on the sheikh's face, the subtle disappointment that none of the so-called experts had reached the essence of the phrase. The room fell into a brief, awkward silence as the last scholar stepped back, mumbling excuses for their failure. The sheik's eyes scanned the audience, and for a moment, everyone held their breath. It seemed as if he might abandon the challenge altogether, disappointed that no one could rise to the occasion. Lena's hands were trembling now, and she felt an urge stronger than fear or doubt. She knew she had to speak, even if it meant stepping into a world that had always seemed out of reach. She moved slightly closer, her voice barely audible at first. "Excuse me," she began, unsure if anyone would hear her. Heads turned. A few guests raised their eyebrows in surprise. One of the scholars frowned, clearly irritated that a waitress would dare interrupt. Lena took a deep breath, recalling every lesson her grandfather had taught her, every word and inflection he had emphasized. "The phrase means," she continued, her voice gaining strength, "it is about the true meaning of honor and humility in speech, and it reflects the connection between language and the soul of a person." The room went completely silent. Every eye was on her, the small figure standing among giants. The sheik leaned forward slightly, intrigued. The experts exchanged glances, some skeptical, some bewildered. The simplicity and depth of her explanation struck a chord. Unlike the convoluted interpretations given before, Lena's words were direct, heartfelt, and accurate. They resonated not just with the intellect, but with the understanding of culture and tradition. The sheik's expression softened, and a small smile appeared. He asked her to explain further, to elaborate on the historical context of the phrase. Lena, encouraged by the calm yet attentive presence of the billionaire, described the origins of the words, the poet who had first written them, and the lessons they carried for anyone who truly listened. Each sentence revealed not only her knowledge but her respect for the language, and the audience could feel the authenticity in her voice. The experts, once confident and dismissive, now seemed humbled. They listened intently, realizing that this young waitress had done what they could not. She had tapped into the essence of the phrase, connecting not just the words, but the emotion, the history, and the wisdom embedded within them. The sheik nodded slowly, as if confirming an unspoken truth, and the atmosphere in the hall shifted from tension to awe. For Lena, the moment was transformative. She had stepped beyond her role as a waitress, beyond the expectations of those around her, and found her voice. It was not just about speaking the words correctly. It was about honoring the meaning behind them, a lesson her grandfather had always emphasized. In that instant, she understood that knowledge was valuable, but understanding and heart were even more powerful. The event continued, but the energy had changed. Lena remained near the stage, quietly observing, her heart still racing. The sheik had yet to make any official announcement, but the room buzzed with whispers about the young waitress who had outshone 40 experts. People could not stop talking about her courage, her insight, and the unexpected brilliance that had emerged from someone they had never noticed before. As the day went on, Lena returned to her duties, carrying trays with the same careful precision as before, but everything felt different. She had been part of something extraordinary, and she knew that her life might never be the same again. The seeds of opportunity had been planted, and all she had done was listen carefully, trust her own knowledge, and have the courage to speak when it mattered most. The first part of the story ends with Lena moving through the bustling hotel, unnoticed by most, yet holding the attention of a billionaire and changing the course of the event forever. The challenge had begun, and she had already proven that true understanding could come from the most unexpected places. After the initial shock of Lena's quiet but accurate explanation, the room remained unusually still. Everyone seemed to be processing what had just happened. The experts, who had been so confident just moments before, now exchanged awkward glances. Some muttered apologies under their breath, realizing that their complex, rehearsed speeches had missed the essence of the phrase entirely. The billionaire sheik, however, remained composed, his eyes fixed on Lena with a mixture of curiosity and intrigue. He leaned slightly forward, as though expecting her to say more, to reveal layers of knowledge that went beyond what anyone else had achieved. Lena felt a sudden wave of nervousness. Her heart raced, her hands shook slightly, and the tray she was holding felt unusually heavy. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, let alone in front of someone as influential as the sheik. Yet, she also felt a spark of determination. She had known the meaning of the phrase since her childhood, and she knew she could explain it further if she trusted herself. Taking a deep breath, she stepped a little closer to the stage, making sure her voice would carry to the audience without appearing bold or disrespectful. The sheik asked her to continue, to explain not only the translation but the deeper cultural significance and historical context. Lena closed her eyes for a brief moment, recalling her grandfather's teachings. He had been a quiet man with a profound understanding of Arabic poetry and classical texts. He often told her that the meaning of words went far beyond literal translation. The real understanding came from feeling the weight of the words, knowing the history behind them, and respecting the culture from which they emerged. When Lena began speaking again, her voice was calm and measured. She described the phrase in simple, clear terms, explaining its literal meaning first, then moving on to its historical background. She spoke about the poet who had written it centuries ago, the context in which it had been used, and the emotions it was meant to convey. As she spoke, she added small anecdotes she had learned from her grandfather, stories that brought the words to life in a way that no textbook or lecture could. Her explanation was not only accurate but also heartfelt, and the audience began to lean in, captivated by her sincerity. The experts who had been so sure of themselves now found themselves listening in silence. One by one, their faces reflected a mix of surprise, respect, and even embarrassment. They had been trained for years to analyze texts, yet here was a young waitress who had never attended a university lecture on classical Arabic, yet she understood the phrase more deeply than any of them. Some scholars whispered among themselves, questioning how they could have been so wrong, while others simply sat back, nodding in acknowledgement of her insight. The sheik, who had been observing her closely, now asked a follow-up question about the subtle nuances of the phrase. Lena, encouraged by his attentive and respectful gaze, elaborated further. She explained how certain words carried double meanings, how their rhythm and structure were designed to convey emotion as well as meaning, and how the phrase could be interpreted in different ways depending on the listener's understanding and life experience. She emphasized the importance of humility and respect in interpreting ancient texts, noting that true knowledge required both intellectual skill and emotional insight. As she spoke, Lena noticed subtle shifts in the room. The air, which had been tense and competitive, began to soften. People were no longer trying to assert their own knowledge. Instead, they were listening. The sheik nodded thoughtfully, occasionally making small notes on a piece of paper in front of him. Lena felt a mixture of relief and pride, though she remained humble, aware that she was only sharing what she had learned from someone who had truly understood the language before her. Despite the attention, Lena tried to stay grounded. She moved slightly to the side, adjusting the tray in her hands as she continued to speak. She didn't want to appear arrogant or seek praise. Her goal was simply to convey the meaning as accurately and respectfully as possible. The audience, sensing her sincerity, responded in kind. The guests began whispering to one another, expressing astonishment at how someone so young and unassuming could possess such depth of understanding. Even the hotel staff, who had seen her as quiet and diligent but ordinary, now looked at her with newfound admiration. After several minutes, the sheik leaned back in his chair and smiled. It was a small, subtle smile, but it carried enormous weight. He looked around the room, his eyes resting briefly on each of the 40 experts before returning to Lena. His voice, calm and authoritative, broke the silence. "Your understanding goes beyond what I expected from any scholar in this room," he said. "You have captured not only the words but the spirit behind them. That is rare. Very rare." The room erupted in a mix of murmurs and surprised gasps. The experts, though initially stunned, gradually began to nod in agreement. They had witnessed something extraordinary. Here was a young woman, a waitress, whose knowledge and insight exceeded their own, not through formal education but through personal experience, careful listening, and a deep connection to her cultural roots. Lena felt a flush of warmth and humility. She had not sought recognition, yet she could not deny the sense of accomplishment that washed over her. The sheik then posed another challenge, asking Lena to interpret a second phrase, one even more complex than the first. Lena hesitated for a moment, recalling her grandfather's words about patience, clarity, and the power of observation. She took another deep breath and began to explain the second phrase, just as she had the first. Her explanation was detailed yet simple, weaving together the literal translation, historical context, and emotional resonance. She spoke slowly, carefully choosing each word to convey respect and accuracy. As Lena spoke, the experts leaned forward, listening intently. Some whispered to each other, realizing that the knowledge they had spent years acquiring could not replace the understanding that Lena had gained through personal experience and careful study outside formal institutions. The sheik listened silently, his expression a mixture of admiration and contemplation. Every word Lena spoke seemed to reinforce his belief that true understanding often comes from unexpected places. By the time she finished, the room was completely silent again. The guests, the experts, and even the hotel staff were struck by the depth and clarity of her knowledge. The sheik smiled, a genuine smile this time, and spoke to the audience. This young woman has reminded us that knowledge is not always measured by degrees or titles. True understanding comes from listening, observing, and connecting with the wisdom of those who came before us. Today, we have witnessed that wisdom in action. Lena returned to her duties, moving through the room with the same careful steps as before, but the atmosphere around her had changed completely. She was no longer just a waitress. She was someone who had captured the respect of a billionaire and the admiration of 40 experts. The hotel staff whispered congratulations and encouragement, and even the guests who had been skeptical now looked at her with a mix of amazement and respect. As the event continued, Lena remained humble, quietly observing the interactions around her. She had not expected this day to be extraordinary. She had simply done what she knew was right, sharing her understanding of something meaningful to her. Yet, the impact of her words and her courage to speak had created ripples that would be felt long after the event ended. People would talk about the young waitress who outshone 40 experts, about the humility and insight that had won the attention of a billionaire sheik. That evening, as the hotel began to quiet down and the last guests departed, Lena reflected on the day's events. She felt a mixture of awe, gratitude, and anticipation. She knew that her life had changed in some way, though she could not yet see the full extent of it. What she did know was that she had proven to herself that courage, knowledge, and sincerity could make a difference, no matter how small or ordinary someone might seem. The first step of the journey had been taken, and the possibilities ahead felt both exciting and endless. The atmosphere in the grand hall had shifted completely. From the moment Lena had first spoken, a quiet sense of awe had settled over the room, and by the time she completed her third interpretation, that awe had deepened into genuine respect. The billionaire sheik remained seated, his sharp eyes fixed on her, clearly impressed not just by her knowledge but by the calm and confidence with which she had presented it. There was something rare and magnetic about her presence that demanded attention without arrogance. After a brief pause, the sheik stood up, his voice clear and deliberate as he addressed the audience. "What we have witnessed today is extraordinary," he said. "Knowledge is valuable, but true wisdom comes from the heart, from experience, and from a deep respect for culture and tradition. This young woman embodies that rare combination." His words reverberated through the hall, leaving a sense of reverence in their wake. The scholars, who had spent years accumulating titles and accolades, now looked humbled. Some exchanged quiet apologies, acknowledging that Lena had achieved what they could not. A few scholars quietly approached her to express admiration, their voices low, their eyes betraying disbelief that such insight could come from someone outside their academic circles. Lena nodded politely, grateful but composed, not seeking attention but feeling quietly validated for the first time in her life. Then, the sheik asked Lena to demonstrate her understanding one more time. This time, he presented an even more challenging phrase, a line from a centuries-old manuscript that few had ever encountered in their studies. The hall fell silent as everyone turned to watch her. Lena felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her, yet she also felt a sense of calm clarity. Her grandfather's lessons echoed in her mind, reminding her to trust her understanding, to speak clearly and sincerely, and to remain humble no matter the stakes. Taking a deep breath, Lena approached the stage. She began by carefully translating the phrase, breaking it down word by word. Then, she delved into the historical context, explaining the cultural nuances and the emotional depth of the original text. Her voice was steady, her words precise, yet she spoke with warmth and clarity that made the meaning accessible to everyone in the room. She highlighted subtle connections between the words and the values they conveyed, illustrating not only the literal meaning but the spirit of the language. As she spoke, the audience was captivated. The scholars listened with rapt attention, their earlier confidence replaced by genuine admiration. The guests leaned forward, eager to absorb every word. Even the hotel staff, who had watched her work quietly for months, were spellbound, witnessing a side of Lena they had never seen before. She had transformed from a quiet, diligent waitress into the center of an extraordinary moment that would be remembered by everyone present. The sheik asked her follow-up questions, testing her ability to think critically and respond with insight. Lena answered thoughtfully, drawing on her knowledge and intuition. She explained how the phrase reflected not just historical ideas but also lessons applicable to modern life, emphasizing the enduring importance of humility, respect, and thoughtful communication. Her answers were both accurate and enlightening, revealing a depth of understanding that went far beyond rote memorization or academic training. Gradually, the room became silent in reflection, the weight of her words settling on everyone. The scholars were visibly moved, some nodding slowly as they absorbed her explanations. The sheik's gaze softened, a subtle smile appearing on his face as he considered her insight and composure. It was clear that he recognized something rare and invaluable in her, a combination of intelligence, cultural understanding, and emotional awareness that few people ever possessed. The sheik finally addressed the room again, his tone thoughtful but firm. Today, we have learned a profound lesson. Knowledge is not only found in books or titles, but also in experience, in listening carefully, and in understanding the lessons passed down through generations. This young woman has reminded us of the power of humility, dedication, and respect for wisdom. She has surpassed even the most learned scholars here, not by chance, but through her heart and understanding. His words were met with murmurs of agreement, whispers of admiration, and a sense of awe that seemed to linger long after he had spoken. Encouraged by the sheik's words, Lena continued, sharing reflections on the importance of culture, heritage, and learning from those who came before us. She emphasized that true mastery of a language was not about memorizing words, but about connecting with the meaning, the history, and the emotional depth behind them. Her words were simple yet profound, resonating with both the scholars and the guests. People began to see the wisdom in what she was saying, and the energy in the room shifted from one of astonishment to one of inspiration. The scholars approached her once more, this time with genuine curiosity and admiration. They asked questions not to challenge her, but to understand her perspective and the insights she had so clearly articulated. Lena answered each question thoughtfully, never showing frustration or pride, only sincerity and a desire to share what she had learned. The interactions were quiet yet impactful, demonstrating that knowledge could be shared respectfully and effectively, regardless of one's position or background. The hotel staff watched in quiet amazement, feeling proud to have witnessed such an extraordinary display. Lena's transformation from a quiet, unassuming waitress to a figure commanding the attention of a billionaire and 40 scholars was inspiring. Her courage, humility, and knowledge had created a ripple effect, reminding everyone that greatness can come from the most unexpected places. By the end of the day, the sheik had made a decision. He approached Lena with a warm expression and a genuine tone. "You have demonstrated an understanding that is rare in the world today," he said. "Your knowledge, humility, and insight are extraordinary. I would like you to join my cultural preservation team and continue to develop your skills, sharing your understanding and passion with others." Lena felt a mix of emotions: astonishment, gratitude, and disbelief. She had never imagined that her quiet diligence, her small acts of learning, and her willingness to speak up would lead to such an incredible opportunity. The recognition she received from someone of the sheik's stature was overwhelming, yet she remained humble, bowing slightly in gratitude. "Thank you, sir," she said simply, her voice steady, reflecting the sincerity that had carried her through the day. The room erupted in subtle applause, as guests, scholars, and staff alike acknowledged the magnitude of what had just occurred. The sheik turned to the audience and emphasized once more the lessons learned that day: the value of humility, the importance of experience and careful listening, and the extraordinary potential that can exist in the most unexpected individuals. Lena's story would be remembered, not only for the knowledge she had shared but for the courage and character she had demonstrated. As the event concluded and the hall began to empty, Lena returned to her routine tasks with a sense of quiet accomplishment. The hotel staff whispered congratulations, and the scholars approached her with newfound respect. She moved among them with grace and humility, aware that her life had changed in profound ways. The experience had opened doors she had never imagined, and it had solidified her belief in the power of courage, knowledge, and sincerity. That evening, as Lena left the hotel and walked home, she reflected on the day's events. She thought about her grandfather, the lessons he had taught her, and the moments of quiet learning that had prepared her for this extraordinary day. She realized that every small effort, every attentive observation, and every act of humility had contributed to this moment. The journey ahead was just beginning, but she now understood that courage, knowledge, and respect could create opportunities beyond imagination. The young waitress who had captured the attention of a billionaire and 40 scholars had not only proven her understanding, but had also reminded everyone present of the enduring value of humility, sincerity, and heart-centered wisdom. The hotel had begun to quiet down as the last guests slowly left, but the energy in the grand hall remained electric. Lena moved among the tables, carrying trays and collecting dishes, yet every step she took felt different. There was a subtle weight of importance in the air, and she felt it with every glance from the staff and scholars who still lingered. Today had been extraordinary, and she could feel the ripple of change around her. The billionaire sheik remained in the center of the hall, surrounded by his aides. He was calm as always, but there was a noticeable warmth in his expression, a quiet satisfaction. His gaze followed Lena as she moved through the space, and when she met his eyes, she felt a reassuring nod that seemed to convey more than words could. He had been observing her all day, testing not just her knowledge but her character, and he had reached a decision that would alter the course of her life. Once the hall had emptied of most of the audience, the sheik approached Lena directly. His presence was commanding yet gentle, and Lena felt a mixture of awe and nervousness. He smiled, a warm and genuine smile that seemed to lighten the weight of the day. "You have shown something very rare today," he said, his voice calm but carrying immense authority. "You have demonstrated not only knowledge and understanding, but also humility, courage, and respect. These are qualities that cannot be taught in schools or learned from books. They come from the heart, and you possess them naturally." Lena's hands trembled slightly, but she stood tall, meeting his gaze. She had never imagined a day like this, a day when her quiet diligence and careful learning would be recognized by someone of such influence. She found herself speechless for a moment, overwhelmed by the acknowledgement and the gravity of the moment. The sheik continued, "I have been searching for someone to join my team, someone who can help preserve our language, culture, and heritage. Knowledge is important, but understanding the spirit behind it is crucial. Today you have proven that you can do both. I want you to join my cultural preservation team. You will have opportunities to learn, grow, and share your understanding with others. I believe your insight and dedication can make a lasting impact." Lena felt a rush of emotions, disbelief, excitement, and gratitude all at once. She had spent years working quietly, helping her family, and learning in her own way, never imagining that this could lead to something so life-changing. She bowed her head slightly, keeping her words measured. "Thank you, sir," she said. "I am honored, and I will do my best to live up to your expectations. I will work hard and continue to learn." The sheik nodded approvingly, then addressed the remaining audience and staff. "What you have witnessed today is a lesson for all of us. True understanding and wisdom can come from the most unexpected sources. Titles and positions are not the ultimate measure of knowledge. Listening carefully, learning from experience, and approaching life with humility are what create true mastery. Lena has exemplified this, and we are all fortunate to have witnessed it." The room erupted in quiet applause, respectful and sincere, acknowledging not only her knowledge but the courage and humility with which she had shared it. Scholars, who had been skeptical or competitive, now approached her with admiration, eager to learn from her perspective and insights. The hotel staff looked on with pride, amazed that their colleague had transformed from a quiet waitress into someone whose words had commanded respect and attention from so many influential people. Lena returned to her duties for the rest of the day, but everything felt different. She carried herself with a quiet confidence, aware of the change in perception around her. Guests treated her with newfound respect, colleagues whispered words of encouragement, and even the scholars she had once thought were untouchable now recognized her abilities. Yet she remained humble, understanding that recognition was only part of the journey. What mattered most was the work ahead and the opportunities to continue learning and sharing knowledge. As evening approached and the sun cast long shadows through the hotel windows, Lena took a moment to reflect on the day. She thought about her grandfather, who had taught her the importance of understanding words, history, and emotion. She remembered his lessons about humility, listening carefully, and respecting the wisdom of those who came before. Every moment of her quiet learning, every observation she had made, and every act of courage had led her to this extraordinary point. She realized that her path, though unexpected, had been guided by the values instilled in her from a young age. The sheik, observing her quietly, noticed her reflection and approached once more. He spoke softly, as if sharing a personal thought rather than giving instructions. "Your journey is just beginning," he said. "Remember, knowledge without humility is dangerous, but knowledge with understanding and respect can change the world. I see that potential in you, and I want you to nurture it. The opportunity before you is not just about learning. It is about making a meaningful impact." Lena nodded, feeling a deep sense of purpose. She understood that this was more than a job or a title. It was a responsibility, a chance to honor her culture and share her understanding in ways that could influence others. She felt a profound gratitude for the guidance she had received from her family, the patience she had cultivated through years of quiet work, and the courage she had found within herself to speak up when it mattered most. Over the following weeks, Lena began working closely with the sheik and his team. She traveled to cultural centers, helped preserve rare manuscripts, and engaged with scholars and students alike. Each day brought new challenges, but her foundation of humility, observation, and dedication allowed her to excel. People she had never imagined she could influence now sought her insight, and she approached every situation with the same sincerity and clarity that had impressed the sheik. Her colleagues and the experts who had once doubted her slowly came to respect her not only for her knowledge but for her demeanor. She listened carefully, spoke thoughtfully, and always remained grounded, never allowing recognition to cloud her judgment or humility. The stories of her courage and insight spread, inspiring others who had quietly pursued knowledge without recognition, showing them that true understanding could emerge from anyone willing to learn and observe. Months later, Lena reflected on the journey that had begun with a single moment of courage in the hotel hall. She realized that the lesson she had learned, that humility, sincerity, and dedication could open doors, was not just about her life but could guide others as well. She continued to honor her grandfather's teachings, sharing them with the next generation and helping preserve the cultural and linguistic treasures that had shaped her understanding of the world. Lena's life had changed profoundly, but she remained herself, a young woman with a passion for learning, a deep respect for her culture, and a heart dedicated to helping others understand the beauty and depth of the Arabic language. The experience with the billionaire sheik and the 40 experts had taught her that extraordinary opportunities often arise when courage meets preparation, when knowledge is combined with humility, and when one listens carefully and acts sincerely. The story of the young waitress who had outshone 40 experts became widely known, inspiring countless people to value learning, humility, and courage. Lena's journey was a reminder that greatness could emerge from the most unexpected places, that respect for tradition and culture could open doors, and that a sincere heart could achieve recognition beyond titles and expectations. Her life had been transformed, but more importantly, she had proven that true understanding, combined with courage and humility, could indeed change the world.